It was late afternoon in New York City, the kind of cold, gray winter day when everyone moved fast and spoke little. Inside the Times Square subway station, the air smelled of rain, metal, and roasted peanuts from a vendor at the entrance. The trains screeched, the crowd roared, and among hundreds of hurried steps a small sound broke through the chaos, the soft sobbing of a child. Michael Carter, a 46-year-old security guard who had worked in the subway system for nearly 2 decades, was finishing his shift when he heard it. He turned toward the sound, scanning the crowd until he saw her. A little girl sitting near a column, her knees drawn to her chest, her coat too thin for the freezing air. She couldn't have been older than 5. Her cheeks were flushed from crying, and she clutched a crumpled note in her tiny hands. Michael approached slowly. "Hey there, sweetheart," he said gently. "Are you lost? Where's your mom or dad?" The girl lifted her tear-streaked face but said nothing. Her lips trembled. "Can I see what you're holding?" he asked. Hesitantly, she handed him the paper. It was damp, the ink slightly smeared but still readable. There were only 4 words written on it in shaky handwriting. "Take care of her. E." Michael froze. His heart skipped. E. The initial hit him like a ghost from the past, a name he hadn't heard or thought about in years, a name that carried guilt, loss, and memories buried deep beneath a lifetime of regret. He looked back at the girl. She stared at him with wide brown eyes full of fear and exhaustion. "What's your name, sweetie?" "Lily," she whispered. "Okay, Lily," Michael said softly. "We'll figure this out." He reported the situation to the subway supervisor, who called the police. While they waited, he gave Lily his jacket and bought her a cup of hot chocolate from a nearby stand. She drank quietly, her hands trembling around the paper cup. When the police arrived, they asked questions, took photos, and noted details. But no one had seen the woman who left Lily there. The cameras near the entrance had malfunctioned hours earlier due to a power issue. It was as if the child had simply appeared out of nowhere. As the officers discussed procedures, one of them looked at Michael. "She'll have to go to child services for now," the officer said, "unless you're willing to stay with her until we find a temporary placement." Michael hesitated. He wasn't used to children. He'd spent most of his adult life alone, working long shifts, living in a small apartment in Queens. But as he looked down at Lily, shivering despite the hot chocolate, something in him stirred. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe it was that name on the note, echoing from his past. "I'll take care of her tonight," he said finally. "Until you find someone else." The officer nodded. "All right, Mr. Carter. But you'll need to check in with child services in the morning." Michael agreed, signed the necessary forms, and led Lily out of the station into the cold city night. She held his hand tightly, as if she'd known him forever. That night, in his small apartment, Lily fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of coffee and detergent. Michael sat nearby, staring at the note again, the name haunting him. He whispered to himself, "E. Why now? After all these years?" Outside, the subway rumbled beneath the city, a restless reminder that life never stopped moving, even when your past tried to catch up. What would you do if a stranger's child suddenly became your responsibility, and the only clue was tied to your own past? If you want to hear the rest of this emotional story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. The morning light slipped through the blinds of Michael's apartment, casting pale lines across the small living room. Lily was still asleep on the couch, her little hand clutching the corner of his old flannel blanket. Michael stood quietly by the window, sipping coffee, watching the city wake up. He hadn't had anyone in his apartment for years. The walls were lined with framed subway maps, a few black and white photos from his youth, and a faded picture of his younger brother, the only family he had left. But now, with Lily there, the silence felt different. Not lonely, just fragile. When she woke up, she blinked around the unfamiliar space. "Where's my mommy?" she asked softly. Michael knelt beside her. "We're still trying to find her, sweetheart. The police are helping, but you're safe here with me, okay?" She nodded hesitantly. "Do you have cereal?" That small question, so ordinary, so innocent, made him smile for the first time in a long while. "Yeah, I think I can manage cereal." He poured her a bowl, watched as she ate slowly, and noticed the way she avoided looking at the note on the table. Later that morning, Michael took her to the Child Services office downtown. The woman in charge, Ms. Torres, asked a dozen questions: where he found her, what she said, what she had with her. Then she said, "Until we can locate a family member or guardian, Lily will stay in temporary foster care." Lily's eyes filled with tears. She clung to Michael's arm. "Please don't leave me." He froze. The room fell silent. Ms. Torres looked at him with sympathy. "Mr. Carter," she said gently, "you can apply for temporary guardianship if you're willing to take responsibility." Michael hesitated for a moment, long enough to remember how it felt to lose something he couldn't save. Then he nodded. "I'll do it," he said. "I'll take care of her." That night, Lily's laughter echoed faintly through his small apartment as they played a board game he hadn't touched in years. She was shy at first, but by bedtime she was telling him about her favorite color, her teddy bear named Buttons, and a song her mom used to sing about stars. When she finally fell asleep, Michael sat at the table, staring again at the note. "Take care of her. E." He turned it over, noticing something he hadn't before. A faint watermark, the logo of a city-run shelter. He froze. That shelter had burned down 15 years ago. The memory came rushing back like a wave of smoke and fire. He had been on duty that night, a rookie security officer assigned to help evacuate people. The fire had spread fast. The alarms malfunctioned. A young mother had refused to leave without her baby. Michael had tried to go back for her, but the flames forced him out. By the time firefighters arrived, it was too late. The report said both mother and child had perished. He pressed his fingers to his temple, the guilt still sharp after all these years. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." But the pieces were starting to align. The shelter, the initial, the child. The next morning he went back to the subway station. He showed the note to a co-worker, Janice, who had been there the night of the fire too. When she read the name, her face went pale. "Michael, that looks like Eleanor's handwriting." His breath caught. "Eleanor?" Janice nodded slowly. She was the woman from the shelter, the one who lost her baby. "You remember, don't you?" He did, all too well. And now, 15 years later, a little girl with her same eyes had appeared in his life, carrying a note signed with that same letter. But could the impossible be true? Could Lily really be the child he thought had died that night? For the next few days, Michael couldn't stop thinking about what Janice had said. The name Eleanor echoed in his mind like a ghost he had tried to bury. He started to see flashes of that night. The smoke, the screams, the heat. The way the young woman had begged him not to leave her baby behind. He remembered her voice. "Please take her. Please save her." And then, darkness. He had convinced himself for years that both mother and child were gone, that there was nothing he could have done. But now, looking at Lily, alive, real, and so impossibly connected to that memory, he couldn't ignore the truth clawing its way up from the past. At work, Michael started asking questions, quietly, carefully. He checked old reports from the New York City shelter fire of 2010, but most of the files were sealed. When he finally convinced a retired fire chief to show him what remained, his hands trembled as he turned the pages. The report mentioned Eleanor Reed, 29, single mother, and her infant daughter, who had been listed as presumed deceased. But there was no record of the body ever being identified. Only a small pink blanket found near the entrance. Michael's chest tightened. "Presumed deceased," he whispered. "Not confirmed." That night, he sat by Lily as she colored at the table. "Lily," he asked gently, "do you remember where you lived before the subway? Your house, maybe? Or your mom's name?" She stopped drawing. Her crayon hovered above the paper. "She sang to me," Lily said quietly, "a song about fireflies." Michael froze. That song. Eleanor used to sing that same song in the shelter. He remembered her humming it to calm the other children during blackouts. He leaned forward. "Lily, who taught you that song?" The little girl frowned, thinking hard. "Mommy's friend," she said. "Her name was Ellie." His heart stopped. Ellie. Eleanor. He excused himself and went to the kitchen, gripping the counter until his knuckles turned white. The name, the song, the handwriting, it all fit. But how could Eleanor have survived? And why would she abandon Lily now after saving her once? The next morning he visited Janice again. She listened in silence as he told her everything. The note, the song, the child. When he finished, she sighed heavily. "Michael," she said, "I think Eleanor survived that fire. I heard rumors back then that she was badly injured and went into hiding. She thought the city blamed her for the accident. Maybe she left New York, changed her name. Maybe she came back recently. But why leave the girl in a subway?" he asked. "Why me?" Janice gave him a long, knowing look. "Maybe because she still trusted you." The words hit him harder than any blow. If Eleanor had trusted him enough to leave her daughter in his hands, then he couldn't fail again. That evening, he tucked Lily into bed and sat watching her sleep. The soft rhythm of her breathing, the rise and fall of her chest, it all felt fragile, like something borrowed from fate. But peace didn't last long. Near midnight, his phone buzzed with a blocked number. He hesitated before answering. A woman's voice came through, shaky, urgent. "Michael Carter?" He froze. "Who is this?" A pause. Then softly, "You have her, don't you?" "Lily." His blood ran cold. "Who is this?" he repeated, his voice trembling. The woman took a sharp breath. "Please, don't let anyone take her. They're looking for me. They'll take her too. You can't trust them." "Wait. Who are you? Are you—" But the line went dead. Michael stared at the phone, his heart pounding. He wanted to believe it wasn't real, that the voice was a trick of guilt or exhaustion. But deep down, he knew. He knew that voice. It was Eleanor. Michael didn't sleep that night. The voice on the phone replayed over and over in his mind, trembling, desperate, unmistakable. Eleanor was alive. But if she was, why stay hidden all these years? Why leave her daughter in a subway station instead of coming forward herself? The next morning, Michael couldn't focus at work. Every passing train, every face in the crowd seemed suspicious. He called the number back several times, but it went straight to voicemail. That evening, when he returned home, Lily was sitting on the couch drawing again. She held up a picture for him, a woman with long hair, holding a baby, standing next to a man in a uniform. "Who's this?" Michael asked softly. "That's Mommy," Lily said. "And that's you." His heart skipped. "Me?" She nodded. "Mommy said you were a good man. She said you helped people." Michael swallowed hard, the lump in his throat growing. "Did Mommy tell you when she'd come back?" Lily shook her head. "She just said you'd know what to do." That night he couldn't bear it anymore. He needed answers. He went to the address listed on the old shelter's file, what used to be Eleanor's emergency contact. The building had long been condemned, but one of the neighbors remembered her. "Eleanor Reed?" the old woman said, leaning on her cane. "Yeah, I remember her. Sweet girl. Moved back here a few months ago. I think she was staying with some church volunteers in Brooklyn." Michael thanked her and left, his pulse racing. He drove across the city through freezing rain until he found the small church tucked between two apartment blocks. The doors were open. Inside, the smell of wax and wood filled the air. A volunteer pointed him toward the back pew. "She's here sometimes at night. Quiet woman. Keeps to herself." And then he saw her. Eleanor. She was thinner. Her face lined by time and sorrow, her hair streaked with gray. When she looked up and saw him standing there, her breath caught, and tears filled her eyes. "Michael," she whispered. He froze in the aisle, unable to move. For 15 years, he had imagined this moment. What he'd say, what he'd feel, but now all he could do was stare. "You're alive," he said finally. "All this time." Eleanor nodded weakly. "I shouldn't be. I wasn't supposed to survive that night." Michael sat beside her, his voice trembling. "Why didn't you tell anyone? Why disappear?" She looked down at her hands. "Because they blamed me." The city said the fire started because of a candle I lit for warmth. It wasn't true, but I couldn't prove it. I lost everything. My baby, my home, my name. Michael's voice cracked. But Lily, how? Eleanor closed her eyes. She lived. Someone pulled her from the flames. I didn't know who until later. I searched for her for years, but every record said she was gone. I thought you'd moved away. Until I saw your name on the news last month. You were still working for the subway. So you left her there? He asked, his tone half anger, half heartbreak. Tears rolled down her face. They were following me, Michael. I'd been hiding from people who wanted to use her for money. They knew she was part of an old lawsuit about the fire. I didn't know where else to turn. You were the only person I ever trusted. Michael leaned back, overwhelmed. Eleanor, you should have come to me sooner. She looked up at him, her eyes red. Would you have believed me? The question hung heavy in the air. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding. She's safe now, with me. But the police, they'll come looking for you. Eleanor shook her head. I can't go back. Not yet. Promise me you'll keep her safe until I can prove who I am. Michael hesitated, then reached for her hand. You have my word. Just then, footsteps echoed through the church. 2 men in dark coats appeared at the door, scanning the room. Eleanor's grip tightened. They found me, she whispered. Michael stood instantly. Go out the back, he said. I'll handle this. She hesitated only a moment before running toward the side exit, vanishing into the night. The men approached Michael. We're looking for someone, one said coldly. A woman named Eleanor Reed. Michael's jaw tightened. Haven't seen her. They exchanged looks, then left. But not before one of them slipped a card onto the pew. On it was a government seal and the words, Federal Investigation, Arson Unit. Michael stared at it, his pulse hammering. The fire, the shelter, Eleanor's past. It wasn't just tragedy anymore. It was a secret someone wanted buried. The next few days felt like a storm Michael couldn't escape. Every knock on the door, every phone vibration made his heart race. He knew the men who had come to the church weren't ordinary investigators. They wanted Eleanor silenced. And if they couldn't find her, they'd come for Lily. He kept the little girl close, taking different routes to work, avoiding routines. Lily seemed to sense the tension. She didn't ask many questions, but one evening, as he tucked her into bed, she whispered, You're scared, aren't you? Michael tried to smile. A little. But as long as you're with me, nothing bad will happen. Mommy said you were brave, Lily murmured before drifting off to sleep. Her words hit him like a knife and a healing touch all at once. Brave. He hadn't felt brave in years. Not since the fire, not since he'd run out of the shelter believing he'd failed everyone inside. That night, unable to sleep, Michael sat at the kitchen table staring at the note again. Take care of her. E. The same phrase that had haunted him for weeks now felt like a calling. A final request. He knew what he had to do. He drove across the city before dawn, stopping at a public library. With trembling hands, he scanned through old archives of the shelter fire case. Buried in the back of a forgotten report, he found what no one had ever looked for. The fire's cause had been misfiled. It wasn't negligence, it was faulty wiring. The same issue that had caused 2 other blazes in city-owned properties that year. The government had buried it. To avoid lawsuits. To save face. And Eleanor had taken the blame. Michael printed everything and drove straight to the Child Services office. Ms. Torres looked shocked when he dropped the papers on her desk. This clears Eleanor Reed's name, he said firmly. You can check the dates, the reports. She's innocent. Ms. Torres skimmed the pages, eyes widening. Mr. Carter, this changes everything. Before they could speak further, a commotion erupted in the hallway. 2 federal agents entering, demanding to speak with him. Michael's pulse quickened. One of them stepped forward. Mr. Carter, we need to ask you about a missing person, Eleanor Reed. We have reason to believe she's contacted you. Michael straightened. If this is about the fire, I have evidence that proves she was not responsible. The agent frowned. Evidence? Michael handed him the file. You buried the truth. I'm not letting you destroy her again. The tension hung in the air for a long moment. Then the second agent, younger, quieter, picked up the papers and began to read. His face softened as he scanned the details. "Sir," he said to his partner, "he's right. This is real." Hours later, the investigation was reopened. Eleanor's name was cleared, and an official statement confirmed that the fire had been an electrical failure. When they found her 2 days later, hiding in an abandoned warehouse near the river, she was exhausted, but alive. And when she saw Michael waiting there with Lily, she broke down completely. Lily ran into her mother's arms, laughing and crying at once. Michael stood a few feet away, his eyes wet. For a long time, none of them spoke. Then Eleanor looked up at him. "I never stopped trusting you," she whispered. Michael smiled faintly. "You were right to." Months passed. Life slowly settled into something resembling peace. Eleanor regained custody of Lily but insisted that Michael remain a part of their lives. Every Sunday they met for breakfast at a small diner in Queens. Lily would always run to greet him first, shouting, "Dad!" One morning, as they sat together watching her color on the diner's paper placemat, Eleanor turned to him. "You know," she said softly, "you saved both of us. You gave us a second chance." Michael shook his head. "No, you gave me one." Outside, the city was waking, people rushing, trains roaring, horns blaring, the endless rhythm of New York. But for the first time in years, Michael felt still inside. The ghosts were quiet now. He looked at Lily, laughing as she tried to draw their little family, and he thought about how strange redemption could be, how it didn't come from being forgiven, but from choosing to love again, even after you'd failed. He reached into his wallet and unfolded the note one last time. "Take care of her. E." He smiled and whispered, "I did." Sometimes life gives us a second chance disguised as someone who needs saving. In helping them, we often save ourselves. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional stories about love, redemption, and second chances. What would you have done if you were Michael? Tell us in the comments below.